Well, right off the top of the program, and if you were just listening to Fox News, you heard it as well. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dropping rather sharply. Now, a friend of mine says, "Don't even look at the Dow." He said, "Look at the 5,000 index and some of these others." He said because the Dow Jones Industrial Average is really just a list of 30 stocks, and he said you're not maybe getting a great picture of what's going on. It's only down about 492 at the moment, where it had dropped 1,000 at the beginning of the opening of trading this morning. So yes, things could have been worse. Obviously, this was expected, and a lot of us expected it, but we didn't expect it to happen probably for the next couple of months, so it just got here a bit early. If things get worse, we'll bring it up again in the course of the program, but I'm not so sure that it's anything we're going to spend a lot of time on this morning or dwell upon. A couple of other notes I just wanted to pass along. If anyone is a Facebook friend of Twin Falls Mayor Don Hall, if you were looking at his Facebook page last night, you would have noticed there's a very short message there, and it says that the mayor is going to be making an announcement about his intention to run for county commissioner on Wednesday on the steps of the county building in Twin Falls. So that's a bit of a change for him as far as offices. That's something we'll keep a look at this week, and perhaps we'll actually have an opportunity to talk to him about the new campaign before the week is out. Also, Randy Staple is joining us a bit later in the program from the Idaho Weekly Briefing. He has been doing quite a lot of work covering all of the fires raging across the Northwest, including in Idaho, and he says it's still nowhere near any record. For all and a lot of us who over the course of I think the last couple of weeks we've gotten up in the morning perhaps and thought we were living back in the old farmhouse with a lot of wood smoke. Well, that smoke is still in some of the areas. A friend of mine as far away as Seattle was writing yesterday. He said the wind shifted and his backyard was filled with smoke from many of the fires that are burning in Washington State. I dropped him a line about it, and as usual, well, he works in the computer industry. He wrote me back a long, lengthy note that was, I'm sure if you're an engineer, you'd understand what he was talking about. He was going through all of the history of various regulations on logging and forestry, and it's like this is a reason a lot of us don't really care that he misses most of the class reunions. 9 minutes after 8 o'clock, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. 56. Beautiful morning. I stepped outside a few minutes ago with a cup of coffee and just stood taking in the morning air. A light breeze, but nothing that's really out of the ordinary for this time of year. And then I turned around and I looked across the street from our parking lot here at our town square radio stations, and I saw all of the children walking off to school, probably on their way to their Muslim prayers. Well, it's the same elementary school down the street, the Oregon Trail Elementary, that last year had the reading from the Prophet Muhammad during the morning announcements, and no one at the school system would talk to us about it. Some of you may remember that. But I'm watching the children walk to school, and I thought about that bully in The Simpsons who stands back and always looks. Whenever anyone else has misfortune, he stands back and says, ha ha, I nearly did that, but I thought that they would not appreciate it. I remember what it was like this time of year to be headed back to school. It was not fun. Speaking of children, I happened to attend the prayer vigil outside Planned Parenthood in Twin Falls the other day. This was part of an effort around the country at 300 Planned Parenthood offices. Now, I wanted to share a couple of thoughts about this before we wrapped up this first segment of the program. And that is, in Fort Worth, Texas, I believe they had a turnout of roughly 300. In Boston, Massachusetts, a turnout of roughly 300. Some places had 1,500, 1,600, maybe a couple of thousand. But if you take Fort Worth and Boston, if you look at the listings of the major metropolitan areas in this country, they're both in the top 10. And they had 300 people out. Some smaller places in Illinois, again, had 1,500. But the numbers in a small community like Twin Falls, when you think about how we compare with what's going on the national level, the organizers said they had 85 people when they started at 10 o'clock in the morning. More people were coming the entire time I was there. I left about 11:15 because I wanted to go write something up about it, post it to our website along with some photographs, as well as on our Facebook page. News Radio 1310 has a Facebook page. If you'd like to take a look at that too as well, you'll see a lot of the things that actually go on our website. We just link them over to Facebook. So I left to do that because I figured, well, I want to be the first in town to get this up so people can read about it and they can see it if they couldn't make it. I really could have stayed the entire time. And you know why I could have stayed the entire time? The television station sent somebody by and they got some video, but they weren't sure. They said that they would be able to get it on the air because it was such a busy day. News day. Well, I don't know what was so busy about it. And I guess, in fact, there were some pictures that night. If you actually got a chance to see the story, television did give it some coverage. Good for them, because this turned out to be a major event. And I know it was a major event because after I left, I had some friends who sent me photographs of what took place in the last hour and 45 minutes that the prayer vigil was still going on, and the crowd swelled. So you likely had, perhaps, with people coming and going, close to 200. Think about that. 200 in Twin Falls, 300 in Fort Worth, Texas, 300 in Boston, Massachusetts. So as a percentage, the turnout in Twin Falls was mightily impressive. Some of you know the local newspaper has an office just a few blocks away from the Planned Parenthood headquarters. In fact, the old newspaper office is just a couple of blocks or a block and a half down the street. The new newspaper office isn't very far from there. So easily, someone could have just gotten up from a desk and not even had to worry about driving and just sort of cut catty-corner through a couple of parking lots, cross the street, and they'd be there. Guess what? I decided I don't do this very often. I looked at the newspaper's website yesterday morning. I was up early. I drove into work for a couple of things I had to take care of just briefly yesterday, and while I was here at my desk, I decided to take a look at the website of magicvalley.com to see what coverage they had, because clearly this was a huge story. Then again, if you're trying to cover it up, I think that one of the most convoluted or cumbersome slogans a newspaper could have is all the news we want you to read and none of the news we don't want you to read, which seems to be the philosophy that they're operating on at that liberal rag across town. But here was a headline that I happened to see. Why do children die? New Idaho team searches for links. Lori Welsh, the writer. The death of any child warrants a closer look to search for ways to keep Idaho's children safer. And there are many. The new Idaho Child Fatality Review Team concluded this spring. The state needs campaigns to educate parents about the infant health risks of smoking in the home and about safe storage of guns and medication. Those are among a list of recommendations from the review team established by the Governor's Task Force on Children at Risk in 2013 under executive order from Governor C.L. Butchotter. For its April report, the team screened all 168 deaths of Idaho children younger than 18 in 2012 and pulled 78 of the cases for full review. Now, it's a very lengthy story, and in fact, as I was looking across the website, I noticed that there's at least a couple of companion stories that go along with this one, but there is nothing about Planned Parenthood, and they're talking about the deaths of children? Are you kidding me? And this is supposedly a serious matter, that we've had all of these children who died in the course of 2012, 168 across the state. It is a serious matter. Yes, it is. How many children at the very same time in that calendar year in Idaho were aborted? My guess is the number is much, much higher. Why no coverage again from the liberals? Because when you make a choice like that, the editorial page actually is seeping onto the front page. That's what's going on. The flaming liberals over there, they support killing babies in their mother's wombs. Let's be as honest as we can be about that. And because they support that, they don't want to call any negative attention to it. And they think all of you Christians who were over there praying the other day are a bunch of kooks. Because you go to church, and you believe in God, you believe in a higher power, and you believe in judgment. None of the things which you would find that any liberal newspaper editor would believe in this day and age. 8:15, Bill Colley with you on Top Story on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. If you check out our website, newsradio1310.com, check out my commentary section. I have written extensively. In fact, I referenced the Planned Parenthood Vigil in 2 posts over the weekend. I had 3 posts from Saturday afternoon or late Saturday morning until yesterday afternoon. One deals exclusively with the vigil. The second one is about Donald Trump and the effect he's had on politics in this country this summer. The third actually deals not only with the newspaper's coverage, or lack thereof, of this event Saturday, but also with the newspaper's Kid Club's treatment of our growing Islamic community here in the Magic Valley. And I include a video someone sent me. There is a video about the building project. When you see just how large The new mosque is going to be in the Magic Valley. Holy smokes. It's not going to be as big, perhaps, as the Taj Mahal, but I'm telling you, this is going to be a massive building. The only reason you're building something that large is because you're expecting more than just the 300 people coming here this October. And once again, no one in this community wants to talk about the long-term effects about how this is going to impact the culture. From Lefty's viewpoint, it's all going to be just hunky-dory. They would refuse to even acknowledge that there could be fallout from something like this. They're in denial about that. Now, let's just say everything turns out well and these people acclimate. And in 10 years, they all decide en masse to convert to Christianity. And that they all start going to McDonald's and they sit around on weekends and watch football. All right, fine. But why not also be wary of another potential scenario? Over the weekend, there was a shooting on the French train, late in the week, and it got some coverage in Europe and very little coverage here in the United States. A Muslim man. He was from Morocco originally. He'd been off to Syria so he could be radicalized, and then he returned to France, and he decided to take an AK-47 and shoot up a passenger train. Unfortunately for him, there were some U.S. servicemen, friend of theirs, and a very brave British man who tackled him, and they beat him senseless, knocked him out, and then they tied him up till the train was able to pull over, and now he's going to be on trial. Of course, in Europe, he'll get a slap on the wrist. That'll be about the extent of it. And that's what they want here in this country as well. Lefty wants to emulate all of that, and Lefty wants to bring more of that here. And it just shows you the disconnect between people in mainstream media and the actual people who live on the streets. That very same excuse for a newspaper, that one-horse rag, savaged a state legislator over the weekend on the editorial page. Pete Nielsen, who actually spoke here about these issues regarding the overwhelming and the onrushing Muslim hordes that are coming here, was just absolutely savaged by the editors at that newspaper, who aren't very worldly. I mean, they're all a bunch of snot-nosed kids. All he's done throughout his life is managed to eke out a living farming in the desert, and yet still found a way to support his family. So he must know something. He must have some abilities and a good head on his shoulders in order to pull all of that off, and he knows a little bit about hard work. That's the chasm in this community. It's bigger than that canyon on the other end of town. It really is. You've got Lefty over here who wants to turn this into a miniature Manhattan, which, believe me, the last time I was there, well, some guy coming down the street was trying to pretend that he didn't notice us. I was there with a church conference, and I was walking with two little kids, children of a friend, and I realized this guy's going to be trouble. I relied on my old football experience, put his shoulder down, knocked him ass over teacup. He got up, grabbed his bicycle, and scrambled away. That's life in a big city. I'm not sure I want it around here. Hey, we've got Randy Staples coming up in about 20 minutes. It's 57.